Step into the world of internal conflict and spiritual growth. Whether it's pornography addiction, alcoholism, or the compulsive need for perfection, our human struggles ultimately lead us back to God's healing presence. In this section, pay attention to not only the practical guidance for navigating through these challenges within your ministry, but also the importance of prayerful consideration and God's guidance. Whether we use porn, get regularly high, continue to follow our compulsive need to be perfect, or any other cheap coping mechanism we've developed to replace God, eventually it is seen for what it is. Our faulty will had made the wrong choice. When God deals with us at a foundational level and heals the inner wounds that many of us carry, so that the behaviors that we regularly participated in as a result of them are changed, we are beginning to spiritually mature. The ambivalence within us decreases because our will, by faith, submits to God's will. Take a moment to consider, what if David said, in the midst of his heroic moment with Goliath, similar to what Peter did when he began walking on the water, "I don't think this is a good idea." That kind of ambivalence keeps us from fully entering into anything that we do. We need to, in order to be able to continue to act in the most positive ways, recognize not only what our goal is, but the aspects within ourselves that keep us from achieving that goal. So let's look at 5 common inner conflicts that occur when a decision is being made regarding whether or not we should, as Christian leaders, address porn or any other unhealthy sexual action that we run into as we work with others. Ambivalence is that we at times want to help others and yet don't feel professionally trained or fully knowledgeable or equipped to be their counselor. So why even step up at that heroic moment to help that person? The underlying problem is that we feel insecure. We need to be completely right in order to interact and don't want to stir up any problem that we can't fix. We would rather let things go poorly than somehow involve ourselves further with what we can't get through. The solution? We need to share our awareness about the various intimate struggles each individual has, so our empathy is apparent, while at the same time pointing them in a non-judgmental way to Jesus. We can't fix them. Jesus can. All we can do is guide them to see the answer. Let them know that we're with them on their spiritual journey of restoration. And let them see their perceived value isn't based on perfection, but on how God views them. God sees them on a journey seeking to become more whole as a result of His grace, love, forgiveness, and willingness to work with them. Remember, you cannot fix them. You can only point the way towards who God is and allow them to freely interact with God, and that's what makes the difference. Even God gives us the freedom to offend Him fairly regularly. A second ambivalence that many of us leaders struggle with is we ignore the facts we don't want to see, trying to escape our own painful reality. It's called the confirmation bias. If left to our own devices, we see things according to the same patterns we saw them in the past. At the same time, we are doing this and rigidly following these neuron pathways in our brain. We want to see God and reality accurately. This is especially true when seeing something that stirs up our emotions. So we have a problem. Most of us rely on our thoughts and our intellect while denying that God created us to experience life through our emotions as well. We unknowingly or knowingly seek to ignore our emotional development because these identity messages, although useful, are sometimes difficult to understand and often quite painful. There's a fact that advertisers know well. While we may think we are making a purchase that is good, it is how we feel that makes it most likely for that purchase to occur. The solution to this ambivalence? Learning to develop our own emotional IQ, learning how to label what's going on within us. Remember Adam and Eve? They were given a job to label what's going on around them. And God wants us to label not only what's going on around them and be able to bring that what we discover to God through our language. He also wants us to label what's going on inside of us so that God can help us manage what's going on within us. It is very difficult oftentimes for people who struggle with porn because often the cause behind that is some kind of emotional trauma or struggle or negative self-thought that keeps them from being able to manage themselves in a better way. To preach with empathy, we must bring God into the cauldron of these swirling emotions that exist within us, and through putting words to them, allow His Spirit to grow and influence within us in a way that develops us more fully emotionally. When we preach with empathy and are willing to listen, people share with us how they heard God speak through us. Through emotionally stretching interactions, we preach even more freely as a result of what we've learned listening to the hearts of others and learning how to listen empathically to what's going on within us. The third ambivalence that we struggle with is we know that the power of God can change us when we are in a relationship with Him. We fear, though, using our God-given aggression and are afraid to bring things up to others that may make it difficult or painful to talk about. We don't want to create tension in relationships. And as a result, we worry about how other people feel and how they'll respond talking to us, while at the same time, we fail to speak the truth in love that they need. Problem? When pain is not processed, it is often expressed in a very indirect way that is way more self-destructive. We're not as good at poker emotionally as we think. And eventually, that pain seeps through, and people understand exactly what's going on within us. We've just done it in a way that we act irresponsible and we don't take responsibility for what's really going on within us. I remember asking God once why there's no pain in heaven. And I felt God's immediately answer was, Roy, because in heaven, you're perfect. And I no longer need pain in order to guide you and strengthen you and help you become what I've called you to be. In group therapy, the folks need to learn that they have something to lose and that eventually they need to be able to open up their lives to these kinds of internal struggles and share them with other people so that they feel much less alone. God doesn't waste pain. It exists to teach and refine us. God will give you the strength if you ask to share compassionately so others can relate to the true you. As a result of your example, they will share about themselves and how God relates to them at a deeper level. And both of you together, as you develop these accountability relationships, will be less likely to compartmentalize your porn use from the rest of your personal development. You can point to them to important community resources if they need further guidance. Ambivalence number 4. As different ages and genders are present in the congregation, we want to use language that is real, while at the same time not confusing and tempting or offending any individual. The problem is that if children are present and they're already riding the school bus, what do you think they're hearing on that school bus? Reality is, they're already hearing some type of primitive sexual conversations. We need to develop a support system that it lets other people hear a biblical view of sexuality that is positive and relationally oriented. Sexuality is a major motivating force that influences many social interactions. God wants to be present in these areas to do his good work. Solution? First, we emphasize that our relationship with God needs to become more intimate, as there's no aspect of our lives that God is not interested in. Secondly, you and I need to lead by example, guiding our congregations to bring what they are struggling with to God with much less hesitancy. Thirdly, we must present a healthy view of sexuality, recognizing its pleasurable aspects as a gift from God and connecting it to a committed marital relationship. Good sex has meaning. Fourth, we need to acknowledge that many struggle in this area for reasons they may not feel prepared to face. God can help them discover, deal with, and heal those wounds. Lastly, we need to provide through a prearranged plan a method where those who are struggling can reach out and be given a loving response, guidance to resources for future help, and confidential assistance. The fifth ambivalence is that you and I struggle with our own unwanted and uncontrolled sexual thoughts and feelings while we're helping other people. We wonder how we can help others with what we haven't yet fully mastered. In reality, we're never fully in control of our biological responses. Many of us, if we could, would go over and turn off a switch and say, I don't want my sexuality present in any way in this interaction. After any success, such as a sporting event or even giving a good sermon, testosterone is dumped into the blood. Thus, even when you've helped someone in a very special God-directed way, it can result in increased sexual interest. Problem? We condemn ourselves for being tempted sexually instead of focusing on how you and I respond when we are. When we pretend that we aren't, this increases the internal conflicts within us as we try to be right and perfect. These unrealistic expectations make us feel miserable and create distance between us and those who are struggling with the same thing. Jesus said he comes to heal and find those who are lost. The Christian walk always calls us to hear from God in areas of our personal development where we need to be found and healed. This isn't a once and done act, but a lifestyle of humbly taking ownership of what within us is unmanageable. We're not asking you to disclose to any other person other than God and a trusted accountability department what's really going on in your life. If we could only preach in areas where you and I had complete success, we probably wouldn't preach at all. If you doubt that, just take a moment and think about your marital interactions and those thoughts that fly through your head and your own lack of faith. If you are lost in this area, it isn't to be denied, but it is to cause you to come to Jesus more quickly. God will lovingly help and empower you to become free from what enslaves you. You can't be perfect, and God is able to help you help others despite your imperfection. This emotional ambivalence exists in part because of our biology. Our minds tend to struggle with our biological drives. Testosterone is constantly there, encouraging us to think in sexual ways. May we come to accept this aspect of life and look up to God to get help in an area where all humanity struggles.